Welcome back to Programming with PHP and MySQL, which we will get to in a few weeks' time. I'm going to this week go through, instead of using the PowerPoint slides, I like to go through the actual book itself. So I hit upon all the points and go through some of the examples as well. This week is going to focus more on obviously the PHP aspect and forms as well, which is one of the main features for PHP. Now, those of you who've taken a JavaScript class, you might be wondering, as I go through this, you could do the things we're going to do today. You will say, but I know how to do that because I learned in a previous semester, how to do the same thing with JavaScript. And it's true. It's true that you don't need PHP probably with today's lesson in order to accomplish what we're going to accomplish. But you have to keep in mind a bigger picture in that with PHP, you're able to actually talk to the server itself and make requests from the server, from a database or from other parts of the server, and do more complicated things. So today is more of you learn about PHP, learn some of the coding techniques, and get used to it, because we will eventually go and use the server to access data, and then you'll see the more powerful features of PHP. All right. Having said that, this is pretty much the book. It's a different format than you're probably used to seeing, but this is what I have. It's probably a little better actually for purposes of viewing. So we're going to first focus on a form, and the main thing we're going to do is we're going to have two different. Let me just actually open up the form that they have. These files are available that I'm showing you now are also available from the site the book is from. I could probably post it if I remember. I'll post these source files to the Moodle site, and you could actually go in and use them if you want. So let me just get some of my notes ready here. I'm going to open up my, oh, actually I have it here already. Great. I was preparing for a class and I actually have it available. Okay, here. So this is the first form. Let me just make sure it's the first form. There's, again, I'm taking these scripts from the ones that come with the book. Give me a moment here. Chapter 2, and it's called form.html. I might change the words, but this is form.html. Let me just copy it here, put it here, this. All right, and I'll make it a little bigger so I can see it. All right, so let's first go through this form. I'm going to save it in a folder. What's my folder going to be called? I'm going to save it in, 1 second. All right, so I'm going to take this file. I wanted to find out where my folders. Remember that when you create whatever files you want to create and use PHP for, you have to be using your local host. I'm assuming I heard from some students as far as installing the WAMP. Some people did MAMP, and I was monitoring the discussion groups as well. So a lot of you seem to be very successful with installing it. If you have difficulties, let me know, and I could try to help you out. Depending on the difficulties, we could see what the issue is. But you have to install it. I'll demonstrate again. I'm going to open up. I pressed Windows E to bring up my File Explorer window. I'm going to go to my C drive, and by default, it goes to the WAMP 60. Well, if you did WAMP 64, I don't think you probably would not have done WAMP 32 because you have a 64 machine probably. So it's WAMP 64, and then you go to www, and these are all of your hosts that if you're going to create a website, these will be the root directory for them. So these are the current ones that I have in this machine that you're able to see. So I happen to have one called my class, which is where I'm storing these files. So this is the one I'm going to use, my class. So I'm going to save this file in the following folder. I'm going to save it as file, save as, and just to make sure everything works, again, I build stuff up a little bit at a time. C and WAMP64, www, my class. And I'm going to call this T1 for test1.html. This is actually an HTML file. All right, I wrote it down here just so I can remind myself where it is. And just to make sure that this works, I'm going to copy this. This is my folder, my file. I'm going to open up a browser window. I'm going to use, I guess, Firefox because it's already open on my other machine. Second, new window. I'm bringing it in here, and here I'm going to run there and run it. And we see, okay, great, there's a form. So we see that this is a good sign to me. It just shows that it's reading the file and everything is working correctly. So I'm going to go through this right now, what exactly this HTML form is, because we covered HTML, but I want to make sure that we covered all these aspects of it. It'll just take a few minutes. So let me go to my file here. Okay, so starting off with the doc type, we know about the doc type. This is the default where the different files are located. It's probably not even necessary for this actual document that we're creating. I don't think this is also necessary. The character set UTF-8. We're not using any higher character set, so you use UTF-8. The title is a simple HTML form. I'm going to take here, it says simple HTML form. That's the title. I have if you know about CSS, we're putting in some styles, some CSS. It's not a separate file. It's all inside of the main file. And that's over here. We'll hit upon this in a few minutes, like why this is here, but this does not really have to do with PHP. It has to do with the MySQL. Basically, we're setting the label to have the font weight of bold and the color to this specific color. Right, if I would change this over here, I'll just show you really fast. If I change it to, oh, I don't know, I can change it to a color actually. I could change it to pink. I don't know why I chose pink, but that's what I did. And so you see here that now this changed to pink. So that's what that does. I'm just changing it back by hitting Control-Z. And by the way, I'm using Notepad++. It's my preferred text editor currently. And so now we're done with that. That was all inside of the head, right? Open tag, close tag. Right. For those of you who've taken HTML class, you're shaking your head. Yes, I know that because we've taken this class before. Now we start our body here. Okay, so inside of our body, comment here, script 2.1. This is again from the chapter form.html. It's an HTML form. Now this is where it gets a little bit different. We have this word form here. And it starts here, and we're going to go all the way down to over here. This is where it closes. So from here, all the way up to here is inside of a form. So what happens with a form is that you could put information inside of the form, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but basically in this case, I'm doing stuff like putting a name in, an email address, and gender. I'm able to choose this. I'll show you the radio buttons. I'll show you where this is set inside of the form. But all this information we could do something with it. And what could we do? We could do an action. We could do something with it. And what could we do with it? We could send it to PHP. That's what this action is. This action is going to be handle form.php. When we click the submit button, which I'll show you again in a minute, where that is, we're going to post it to this PHP script this file that we will go and write. Now, we're going to see in a few minutes, there's a few different ways we could post. We could do a post or a get, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. That's why it says post here as opposed to something else. But the main result is that this information can be sent to PHP. All right. So, and I'll demonstrate that in a few minutes. So let me just go through the rest of the actual code, the HTML code here. So we have field set. What we have here, we have legend. 1 second. Okay. We have legend. Enter your information in the form below, and that shows up here. And that's what makes this box around. Again, there are a lot of ways to approach this. This is just a nice. You don't have a lot of this is optional. You could just have the actual input boxes and put information in, but they want to make it a little bit pretty, and so they put this into a legend. And then they have the name, that's the name here. And then over here is the input is type text. Name is name. Size is 20. Obviously, we could, if we edited something over here, you'll see that you could see the results over there. It's going to be smaller, right? So that's what that does. And then the max length is 40. Well, you can't put it in more than 40 letters, and that's for this input. But what's important here is to know that it's called name, because we're going to be using that in a few minutes. Then we have email address, and we have name here is email. And again, these are all the things: type text, size 40, and max length 60. Then we have gender, And this is a radio button. And if we didn't go over radio buttons, let me quickly go over it. Basically, a radio button is you could choose one or the other, but you can't choose both. That's what radio button does. It forces the user to choose something that you could make a default if you want as well. And the way that it works is we're making the label gender, and we have input type radio, name, gender, and the value is, oh, there's a default here, is male, so it should default to male. Why didn't it default to male? Oh, it does. Okay. And then we have the other one here, we have male, and then we have female. The real button is, this is for, oh no, it doesn't default. Actually, this is a value is M for male, and this one here value is F for female. So you'll see how we're going to use that in a bit. But basically, behind the scenes, when I'm clicking this, where it's being, the form is being told, oh, this is going to be an M, and this is going to be an F. And it'll be a little bit more clear once I get into the PHP script. Then we have age, and for the age, this is a drop-down. And the way the drop-down works is as follows. We have select name age. So this is the name of the drop-down, and we have a few different options here. The first option is 0 through 29, and 30 through 60, and 60 plus. And these are all options, and that's why they're showing up over here. And you choose one, and that will be set. And then finally, we have comments, and this is a text area as opposed to just a text box. And we have 3 rows and 40 columns. Again, this is all just straight HTML. And then at the very bottom here, we have a submit button over here. Submit my, we close, after this, we close the field set, right? And the field set is where they're putting it all inside of like in that nice little box. Then we have this submit button, and it's centered align, and the type is submit, the name is submit, and submit my information, and that's the button. Okay, and that's it. That's the whole form. So let's first do the following. Let's build this up a little bit at a time. Well, let me see where I am with them. I said I'm going through the book, so let me just go make sure that I'm choosing the book. I'm going through properly here. Right, they first talk about the form, right? This is the form action script.php. It's going to go to, in this case, we're going to be calling this handle form.php. And in their little example of this saying action is going to be script.php. Let's actually do that right now. Let's actually just go and write a real quick program. I'm just going to say hello world. This is PHP, and I'm going to close this. I'm going to say, I'll do an echo, hello. Great. Semicolon, I have to save it. I'm going to save this as, which I save it as? I'm going to save it as S1 for script 1. Save as, hopefully it'll default to where I was before. Great, which it did. I'm going to call this S1 for script1.php. I'm going to save it, and my nice little colors come in, so I know that I did that correctly. And let me, for right now, go back here to this, my form here, and I'm going to actually comment this out. I don't want to lose it because I'm going to be needing it. So I'm just going to comment it out for a moment. And I want to replace this, form with s1.php, s1.php, and there we go. Okay, so I'm hoping that when I run this and I hit this submit button, it's going to call this form. This action is going to be s1.php, and this should be s1.php because I saved it as s1.php. Everything's saved here and there. And all right, I'm just going to put, just for my own, I like to put little things. I'm going to put over here, I'm going to type in name with 2 colons only because I want to make sure that I'm looking at the newest one, right? So if I do this, yeah, see, now I know that for sure this is my modified one. Okay, I'm going to do submit, and we see hello. Hey, that worked. Great. Not a big deal, but we know that that I am calling that script through that HTML page. And that's a big deal because now we're able to, do more, but more than just that. But I'm able to call that script through the page. Okay, so let me get back to the notes. I'm kind of working in tandem here. I'm going to get back to this post and get later on. If I don't, somebody remind me, or if I post a video without showing it, someone said, hey, you didn't mention this, and I'll do a short video about the post and get at another time. And so this is the form. The book is just going through the form here to create an HTML form. They have all of this is pretty much the same thing that I just went and showed you. They're just talking about it here. The form here. So now we're going to add this form tag, and they're adding this handle for, usually when you want to process a form, the traditional thing is you could use the word handle underscore form. That's what they did over here. It's handle underscore form. Obviously you can't do this because that's not a name, that's not a file name. I don't believe you could even do this. You want to do an underscore, that's the traditional way of going and doing it. So handle underscore form. I'm going to keep mine like this for a minute because I'm going to make a few modifications before I actually jump into their script. And let me just see here 1 second. These are all the options. This is continued from the other side. This is all just the same. I already went through all this, right? The drop down, they're talking about the drop down here, talking about the ages. You should still read it, but I'm just, I already went through it. This is the field set. And fine, this talks about the extension, UTF-8 versus 16 and so on. Okay, handling a form. Now that the HTML form has been created, it's time to write a bare bones PHP script to handle it, basically to process the form. I'm just going to skip down. Again, I'm not going to read it to you because I know that you guys could read it on your own. The beauty of PHP and what makes it so easy to learn, to use, is how well it interprets with HTML, right? Interacts with HTML and so on. Okay, let's do this. Let's do the following. I'm just trying to think of the best way to demonstrate this. I'm going to, I'll do a request. Hold on. 1 minute here. Okay. I'm just going to steal this code for a minute, and I'll show you why. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to my, and by the way, I'm just doing this on, I feel comfortable enough with PHP that I could just, sometimes I pre-make the code ahead of time. Just if I do something more complicated, I feel comfortable if I could just do it. So if I make a mistake here, great, you see my mistakes, and then you could make mistakes on your own, and you can see how to fix them. Okay, right, so I have here, name is equal to request name. So a few things are important. Let's just make sure this works first. I'm going to do echo. I'm going to do $name, and I'll explain all this in 1 minute. Make sure that this works first. Echo name. I just saved it by hitting Control S. I'm going to go back to my form here. Not this. I'm going to go here, back to my form, which is over here. I'm going to hit a refresh. I'm going to write the word Joe, and I'm going to enter this, and I see Joe. Hey, that's neat. So how did that happen? So let's take it a step at a time. Over here, remember we called this name. Look what happens if I call it name 1. Let's just see if it still works. I'm going to call this name 1 as opposed to just name. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to try to run the script again. I'm refreshing it. It's funny, Joe's being kept because by default the browser does. I'm going to call it Bob. I'm going to submit it, and I get an error. Why am I getting an error? Well, I'll show you why I'm getting an error. I'm getting an error because behind the scenes what's happening is that this is name, this input is named name, because we said name. This one is called name email. So each one of these has a name. Now that each of these has a name, when I hit send, when I want to send the form, when I submit, it goes to this script. Now inside of this PHP, I'm creating a variable. We talked about variables in the past with JavaScript, and we're going to talk a lot more in Python, but basically a variable is a named location inside of memory that can store information. Variables are very big in programming, so I'll be using them all the time. So it's a location that can store information. Some languages you have to define ahead of time. Is it going to be an integer? Is it going to be a string? Is it going to be a Boolean? We're not so strict in PHP. You don't have to define what type it's going to be. But the way that you tell PHP that it's going to be a variable is with this $sign. You're going to see a lot of $signs. $sign means I'm creating a variable, and this variable that I'm creating is going to be called name. Now that I've created this variable name, let me just demonstrate really fast. I could, over here, say name is equal to, I'll do Sue. Okay, I like 3-letter names here. Okay, do Sue. If I run this program now, I'm gonna go back here, I'm gonna go back to this, I'm gonna refresh it, and I don't know, it doesn't matter what I type in here. I could write in, I don't know, then whatever. It's always hard to come up with new names. I'm going to submit it. Look what happens. It's saying Sue. Why is it saying Sue? Well, it's saying Sue because I created the variable name and I'm giving it the literal value of the string value of Sue. Great. So now name has the value of Sue. I do echo name. What's it going to come out? Sue, because name is currently equal to Sue. I could change it if I set name is equal to Sue, and now I could say name is equal to, I don't know, I'll do Bob again, right? Bob, big thumbs here, Bob, right? And I run it, so the output's going to be, trust me, it's going to be Bob, right? Because it started off with Sue, and now I'm changing the name that was that little memory location that had the name Sue. Now it has Bob, so if I run this now, it's going to be Bob. So whatever the current value is for that variable, and I echo it out to the screen, that's what it's going to be. That's what value it's going to have. Great. So what we did in our program, let me just do a lot of, no, let's just do this, that, this, that. Okay. So what we did was we are using the information from this form. This form has this input as the name. And because it has the name, I'm requesting, when this is a special built-in feature of PHP, this underscore, whenever you use a $sign underscore, it usually means you're going to be accessing something that's kind of like built into, using something that's built into the PHP foundation. It's a built-in thing. In this case, this request has access to all of the data that we set up inside of the form. And one of those pieces of data that was set up inside the form is this name. Because again, we named this name. And we saw that it didn't work when I renamed name to name one. So this name is now being passed to this form. To this PHP script. Form is being patched to this PHP script. I'm getting the value of name, and it's going into the variable name. And so when I echo it out, name, we should see the actual name. Let's try it one more time to make sure this works. Okay, I did a refresh. I'll go back to Joe, and I'll hit submit, and there's Joe. So now we know, now we're talking. The two files, HTML and the PHP, are now talking to each other. Great. This is a huge deal. This is one, now that you know how to make the two talk to each other, so much is available to you now, because you could pass information and we can make changes. We can, there are built-in methods inside of PHP that we can do. I can make everything like something small as I can make it like too upper or too lower or uppercase. I'll show you really fast here an example. I just don't remember all the PHP to uppercase. 1 second. I just don't remember off the top of my head all the different. Here, I'm going to do this. STR. I think it's 2 uppercase. STR 2 uppercase. 2 uppercase. Right. STR 2 uppercase. This is just a small example. Right. So what's happening here is I am getting the name, and I'm turning it into uppercase, and then it should be displayed. Let's just see if that works. STR2 upper, I kind of rushed that. Let's see if this works. Here, I'm gonna run it. And I'm gonna call Alan. Run it, and we see it's all uppercase. See, so this is a built-in function or built-in method to PHP. Fine. So now that you know how to do that, let's jump back quickly to the notes here. Right. So they want to get all these informations. They want to get the name, the email, and the comments. Request name, request email, request comments. Right. Because we named them all those specific things. So now The PHP script has all of that information. Following the rules outlined before, the data entered into the first form input, which is called name, will be accessible through the variable request name. And then we'll have, we're going to have them all through, we're going to get the email, going to have all those bits of information. So, right, all of this, and fine. Hold on, take a look here. Yeah, so this is the variable name, and this is the element name. Again, you can name anything. Just to be clear, you don't have to name this name, right? I could name this anything I want. I just show the Packers game, so I can name it football, right, if I want to. And then if I output football, the same thing's going to happen. I mean, it's kind of silly, but like, you know, this would also work just to show you that it would work, right? This is no longer named name. I renamed the variable to football just to demonstrate that it does not have to be the same name. I'm going to go and I'll do, you know, great game. And I'm going to do run it, and we see great game. So we see that that works. Okay, just you know, again, just as a quick silly example using football. All right, so okay, and so now they're demonstrating that they're passing in all these informations, and so it's obvious that when I pass in a text field, the text field is going to have that data. The same thing with the email address. It's going to have the email address you put in. The gender, it's whichever one you pick, because this name is gender and this name is gender, but the value for this is F and the value for this is M. If I do, let me show you the following. I'm going to do, I just copied gender here. I'm going to here and I'm going to request gender. And I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to call this gender because it's out of convenience, because there's already in the thing here. I'm going to output this gender. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm just getting the gender now. I'm going to go back to, where am I going back to? I'm going back to here and there. I'm going to refresh it, and I'm going to choose, I'm going to choose male. I'm going to submit it, and we're going to see an M. Right, because why am I going to see an M? I'm going to see an M because when I clicked on that gender male over here, right, when I clicked on the gender male over here, I set this information, this specific label. It was set the value to M. If I would have pressed female, it would have been, the value would have been set to F. And because I retrieved the gender, I got the current value of it, either M or F. And the same thing holds true with this last one here, this age one, right? Let me just demonstrate this really fast. I'm going to go here, I'm going to change this to age, and this to age, because it's already in the copy and paste button. And here I'm going to print up the age. So what's going to happen? I'm going to, whichever one I select, the value is going to be equal to either 0 through 29, 30 through 60, or 60 plus. Just to prove that, I need to make sure everything is saved. I saved everything here. I'm refreshing it, and I'm going to do over 60. I'm going to submit it. I should see, oh, what did I do wrong here? My name, age, hold on a second to change this. Age, I didn't see this. Red means I didn't save it. Save it, go back. Refresh, and I'll change it to between 30 and 60, submit, and I see 30 and 60. Why do I see 30 and 60? Because this had the value 30, 60. Right? I could have made this, you could make values anything you want, and there's some tricks that we could, eventually I'll show you. This is actually, but the value between choosing 30 and 60 is not such a good, not a good example, because it's not really it's not an integer, it's like another string. Everything here is strings. I would have preferred for this to be like an actual value. But okay, this is the example that the book is going and giving. And then we have the comments, and the comments are going to be, again, just a text area, and whatever you type in here is going to show up as the name comments. All right, good. So we have all this. Okay, so now let me actually go to, we covered a lot right now, by the way. This is a real lot of information we just covered. Now you're able to really communicate with the PHP. Let me bring in their example. I have to get it from my other screen. Hold on. This is script handle there. 1 second. And I'm going to take this and this, copy it. No, that's right. It's not right. 1 second. Oh, 1 second. Handle this. Fine. And let me bring this in over here. I'm going to go to my T1 here. I'm going to do this and that. And okay, so this is their, this is kind of the, I took this directly from the book that we just saw. Notice that they're intermingling. This is my HTML form, right? The T1, and this is my S1. So notice that this this page, this S1, it looks a lot more HTML-ish. Before it was like one line, and now it's like all these other lines, and it looks very HTML. And that's what the book was saying. That in general, that PHP works really well with HTML. That you could write in regular HTML script, and then when you want to activate your PHP, just put in this code, the angle bracket, and question mark PHP, and then your PHP will be invoked, and you'll be able to run it. And then when you want to stop it, like over here, it stops. So let's, before we even run this, I'm assuming it's going to work because I copied it from the book. Let's just take a quick look what's going to happen. Again, we have the doc type, we have the title's form feedback, and then we're going to open up our PHP script. And notice our PHP script, this # means we're starting a comment. This is another comment here. The 2 slashes also means we're having a single line comment. My name is equal to request name. My email is request email. My comments request comments. So now I have all of that. Okay, and they're, I guess, commenting here. We're not using age, gender, and submit. Okay, I don't know why, but they're not. Then we want to print up the submitted form information. So we're doing echo, and the echo is, it sends information out to the screen. Open up a quote, open up a paragraph. Like paragraph's going to send this paragraph actually to the browser, so it will start a new paragraph. It's going to say thank you, and then we're going to hit in bold name. Look at that. We're putting in this name directly into the echo command, so which is nice. We're able to say the name for the following comments, and they're putting a BR. This is a break command. It's going to go to the next line. And it's going to say, we're going to have the comments here. I'm not sure what this stands for. I guess it's another tag. And then it's going to say, we'll reply to you at, and then we have the email address, which is going to be in italics. Close the paragraph, a new line, and then we have the end our PHP script, close our body HTML, close our body in HTML, and then close the HTML. That's a lot. Let's see if this works, okay? So we're doing the name, email, and comment. So I'm going back to, where am I going to? Going to over, I don't know, where am I going? Hold on 1 second. I'm going to here, yeah. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna refresh it, and I'm gonna put in Mark. Email is mark@gmail.com. And the comment is, does this work? Does this work? I'm going to submit it. And thank you, Mark, for the following comment. Does this work? And then we reply to you at this specific location. Great. So, you should understand all this code because that's exactly what we just went and learned. All right, let me jump to the next example because I think that we've actually covered the next example in my whirlwind of explaining this. So let me jump to the next example. 1 second. Hold on. I'm just copying my other monitor. I'm just copying it and bringing it in. Here is the next one. AV. Okay. Now remember that, just a side point here, that when you copy, I'll post this information. I'll post these files to the group. But I did change something. I changed here. I don't have to change it back. But in my main form, right, I am telling the action to go to S1. These forms are actually called, the ones that I'm copying in the file that you get is going to be called handle form. but it doesn't matter because I just named them S1, meaning it doesn't matter as long as you send it to the proper, as long as you call the form, it doesn't matter what's in it, right? I'm calling S1, and this is called S1. So, you know, it all works out. Just be aware that the actual form is called handle form.php. I don't mean to make it more confusing. It's probably even better because now I have a better understanding of the actual, you know, the naming of the documents. Same top here, right? We have this. So now, okay, conditionals. That's what they're doing here. This is an if statement. So I'm going to talk about ifs in one moment. I just don't want to get ahead of myself with the book here, right? We're gonna have we got up to here in the book, right? Because PHP must be run through URL. Fine. Just 1 second here. We talked about this. We did the form. Save it. Done. Okay, fine. Let me just read this. Request is a special variable type. Request is I was going to read this tip. The request, this $_request is a special variable type. I think I read this before, but it's also called a super global. Super global in PHP. It stores all of the data sent to the PHP page through either get or post method. I'll talk about get or post more a little bit later, as well as the data accessible in cookies. You're able to, if you're set cookies, we're able to access them as well. Right now, we're not dealing with any cookies. Super globals will be discussed later in the chapter, but just be aware that that is what this request is. It's a super global. All right, so fine. We talk about magic quotes at another point. It doesn't matter because they're getting rid of magic quotes, so we don't even need to know about magic quotes. Fine. All right. So conditionals and operators. Again, if you've taken a programming course, you're aware that most programming languages have, probably all of them, have some type of conditional statement. I think we touched upon it in JavaScript. We will probably be doing it in Python. If you haven't learned it yet, if you've taken a Java course, Java as well, they all have conditional statements, and they all pretty much work the same. More or less, there might be a different way of formatting it, but they all have a conditional statement, and I believe they all have used the word if. And so what does the if do? So let me jump back for a minute, and you know, I worked so hard on this page, I'm just going to delete it all for a moment, just to explain a few things. Delete, I can just recopy it in. And remember, this is my script1.php. I'm going to run PHP, and I'm going to close it here. Okay, and I want to make a variable. I'm going to call this variable num. I'm going to set num is equal to 10, let's say. And I'm going to have if. I'm going to say if what? If $num is greater than 10, then I'm going to open up a curly brace. Then inside whatever sandwich between these curly braces, I'm going to do an echo. I'm going to say the number is greater, greater than 10. Great. And if it's not, I'm going to do else. That's my condition. If it's not, I'm going to say the number, I'm going to echo the number is not greater than 10. Echo the number is, of course this isn't true, it could be equal to 10, but is not greater than 10. So actually in this case, I'm going to make it equal to 9 because that's a better example. Okay, so num is equal to I'm creating a variable called num. Notice here I didn't do when you create a variable, use a $sign and then the actual variable name, a valid identifier. Don't do this, don't do that. That's like you know, the underscore, right? That's meant for the system to use. Don't use it as far as I know. I mean, if you can work at a company that tell you to use it, then use it. But otherwise, for your own practices, let's not use it. All right, so I have a variable called num. I'm setting it equal to the value of 9. Single equal sign, not double equal sign. Talk about the double equal sign in a minute. If num, if this variable is greater than 10, then say the number is greater than 10. Else, if it's not, then the number is not greater than 10. Let me run this. And remember, the way that I'm going to access this page right now is through the form. I could access this directly through my scripting, through just like a direct call to the PHP file, but I already have this set up, and I'm about to use the script that I have. Hold on a second. I want to sit right here. I already have this script set up to call the form, so I might as well use it. So let's save it, go to my here, go there, and I'm going to do a refresh. And I'm just going to hit this, and it's going to say the number is not greater than 10, because it's not, right? And obviously, I'm not going to show you, but if I do 90, it should say it's greater than 10. What if it is greater than 10? I mean, what if it's equal to 10, right? We don't have that condition. So that's where I'm going to put another, if I'm going to say if, I'm going to do else if, else, I think you can do it either way. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember. I think you can do it both ways, but else if num is double sign means is equal to. Remember that one of the most common mistakes programmers make is the double equal sign versus single equal sign. Double equal sign means is equal to. Single equal sign is used for the assignment statement. So it's equal to 10, then I want to, else if it's equal to 10, then I'm going to do an echo, the number is 10. The number is 10, is 10. Else, I don't even need this, oh right, else echo the number is not greater than 10. Is that right? Then here's 10, yeah, that should work. Let's try it out. Okay, so I'm gonna make the number equal to 10. Unless I have a problem with my logic, it should work. I'm saving it. I'm gonna go back here, run it, refresh it, and I'm gonna run here, and we say the number is 10 because it is equal to. And mind you, if I did this, if I forgot a semicolon, right, and I run the page, let me show you really fast what happens. I'm going to run it. I'm refreshing, running it. I get an error message. So just be aware that the stuff that I'm doing now, it's, you know, I'm used to PHP. I use it every single day. So like, you know, I will make mistakes, but I'm just like used to putting code in. So like, so it's, so little things like that. But it told me kind of what the mistake is. It's a parse error, and it's it says, notice the error though. It says unexpected curly brace. So that's a little bit misleading. If you were just programming for the first time, you'd say, oh, why am I getting an error over here? You know, and you're trying to figure out this, but the actual error was over here, right? So, so it's a little bit, you know, deceiving. But in any case, you know, follow the errors, and it'll definitely give you a, instead of expecting a semicolon. So you kind of, you know, a little bit deceiving. So let me try a quick experiment, just so I could actually, you know, I already have these documents open. So let me try a quick experiment. Here's my experiment. I'm going to do the request. Hold on, let me get this. Let me, 1 second here. I'm on my other screen again. I just want to do a request name. I'm just too lazy to type it myself. I'm going to make this my request. I don't mean to really confuse everyone, but just saves me a lot of time. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to get rid of this for a second. I'm going to make my num equal to request name. That's what I'm going to do. And inside of here, remember, my name, this is the name. So I'm going to put in a number inside of name, and then we'll see if I can get the proper result on my PHP result page. So just to, again, this is my form, right? I'm going to put in a number here. I know it says name, but that's just because it's a text. I couldn't name this num. I'm going to put in a number, but it already says name. I just don't take the time to type it. I'm going to put in a number in over here, and then pass that number to my PHP, right? It's going to go into this text field here, and then it's going to be passed here. I'm going to get it through the request called name, and so my num is going to be equal to name. Let's see if this works. Okay, yeah, let's just see. I'm going to refresh my page. I'm going to put in the number, I don't know, put in number 100. Okay, I'm going to run this, and the number is greater than 10 because it is. Let's do it again. Let's see if it works. Okay, I'm going to put in number 5. I'm going to run it, and it's going to say the number is not greater than 10. Let's see if 10 works. I'm putting over here 10, right? And it's going to say the number is 10. Great. So I'm really, you know, I'm able to get this number, and not only am I getting this number, but I'm doing a conditional statement on it. I'm doing a conditional if. If something, then move on from there. You obviously could have more than one. You obviously could have more than one command, as long as it's sandwiched between the curly braces. We did greater than. We did less. We didn't do less than, but the signs are this. Well, the book has it. I'll show what the book has. why should I say in the book has, right? We have, this is the if the conditional statement, then do something, or we have if conditional statement, else, do something else. You could have what's called an if-else ladder. If this is the condition, do something else. If I separate them with a space, I don't think you have to either way. Do something else. So you can have as many of those as you want. And these are the comparative and logical operators. What do we have? So they started off with the is equal to. The double equal sign means is equal to. The exclamation point equal sign is not equal to. So you could say if it's not equal to something. We use it all. You might say, when am I going to reuse it? You use it all the time. Is not equal to. Then you have less than, you have greater than, you have less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. And you have the not. Well, I'll get to these Boolean operators later. But for right now, these are the ones that you should know. Is equal to, not equal to, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, and the not operator. Yeah, what do they have to say about this? Hold on. Take a quick look here. Else if variable, right? So they're throwing in here, this is set var. So is set var, let me show you what this is. Okay, let me jump to here for a minute. And I'm going to, remember before I got an error message when I printed up, I had name one. So now let me just change this and get rid of all this. And I'm going to do, I'll build this up a little bit. Let me call this name, $name. Name is equal to name, great. And I'm gonna do if not, I'll fix all this up in a minute. If is said var, then the name is the echo. The name is $name, and this, that, and let me change this to name. All right, so what am I doing here? This is set, checks and sees if this specific variable has been set. In other words, in this case, I'm going to be looking for a name. This variable name is, the variable name is going to be equal to the request of the name. I'm going to do a conditional here. If is set name, then the name is name. Let's see if this works before I continue on. I'm saving, Control S, running to here, going back, refreshing, typing in Joe, and hitting this, and it says the name is Joe. So you're like, well, big deal. Why, why do we care about this? So I'll tell you why we care, because you can now do some error checking, right? Remember I said before, when I named this name one, right? And I got an error message. You might not have to go if a variable doesn't exist. Here, let me backtrack for a minute. Let me just make this a little different. I'm going to call this name one. Okay, no, that's not going to work. Name one over here. Okay, name one is equal to request name. So this is name one is going to be equal to whatever the name was. If is set name, right? There is, if I don't have, if I try to print up, let me show you this first. There, this is good, right? If I try to print this up, I think I'm going to get an error message, I believe, because there currently is no name, because the name is now name one, right? The request is for name. That's what we're getting from the form, but I'm putting into name one, so this name does not exist. Let's see what happens when I try running this. Going backwards here, refresh it, name Joe still. So I get an error message. Why do I get an error message? Because it says the undefined variable name doesn't exist, right? Name doesn't exist because I went and I took it out. I named it name one. But now what I can do is this. I could say if is set name. So if name is set, then I want to go and echo out the name. And I could say else, something like this. I could say else, echo, I don't know, echo name does, no name was entered. No name was entered. No name was entered. Right, so now because I'm checking to see if name exists, and it doesn't, it's gonna go to to the else. If, else, yeah. Let's make sure this works. I'm gonna go back and run it. Sit here, and it's gonna say no name was entered because no name was entered because I changed it from name and name one. So that's what the is set does. And what's nice is the is set is a Boolean operator. It's either a true or a false. So this is gonna evaluate the true or false. If name has been set, it's true, then this is gonna execute. If it's false, then that's going to execute. So the book is going to explain here, just to make matters a little bit more interesting, you could reverse the true and the false by putting in this not operator. You could turn a true to false and a false to true. And that also is used all the time. And I'll try to come up with an example of that in a bit. So yeah, so there we go to that. And now we could do the next, I think I could do the next part here. So let me do the next part. I'm copying it here, going there, this, that. All right, so let's take a look here. This is the next step. We have name, email, and comments. Great. If is set gender. So that means if the request of gender has been set, if that was passed to it, then we're going to set gender equal to request, else gender is going to equal null. Null is a built-in command, meaning it does not have a value. It's basically, there is a variable now called gender, but it's just equal to null, which means it just doesn't have a value. So again, let me just run through that again. The reason why we're using the is set here is because if it's possible, that's probably why they didn't set a default. They wanted to demonstrate that. Gotta like that. I'm going to refresh. I'm actually, this time, instead of doing a Control R, I'm going to do an F5 because an F5 should refresh the whole page. Why didn't it refresh the whole page? No, I don't want that. I want to get rid of all this pre-made stuff here. It should have worked. All right, well, in any case, if neither of these are set, if I don't hit this or this, that means that gender has never been clicked. If it's never been clicked and I try to get data from it, I'm gonna get an error message because it's gonna say there is no request for it because nothing was passed in. So that's why we're doing if is set request gender. If gender has been set, then gender is equal to whatever it is. Otherwise, it's going to be equal to null. That's what this is set is doing here. Then we're going to print up the same thing we printed up before. Thank you for all the same information. We're going to print it. Right. Then we're going to do over here if gender is equal to m. And notice here that the double equal sign if gender double equals m. If it's equal to an m that was passed in, we're going to say good day, sir. Else, if gender is equal to f, we're going to say good day, madam. Echo, otherwise you forgot to enter your gender. Good, straightforward. Let's make sure this works. Should work because it's, hold on here. Refreshing it, and I'm going to keep, I'll do Sue again. Sue, and Sue's a female. Hitting submit my thing, and it says, thank you. Good day, madam. Super, that's great. So yeah, so that's that. So let's jump on a little bit more here. Hold on. We're trying to keep up with the book, right? So we got the is set gender. Gender is null. Request. This is a simple and effective way to validate a form input, particularly a radio button checkbox or select, because we never know if they selected them or not. If the user checks either gender radio button, the request will have a value, meaning that the condition is true. In such a case, the shorthand version of this gender is assigned to the value the value request gender. Fine. If the user does not click one of the radio buttons, then this condition is not true, and gender is assigned the value of null, indicating that there's no value, that it has no value, but it won't make an error, which is exactly what we wanted to go and do. And this is the result that we just got. What's this? After the echo statements and another conditional that prints the message. Okay, yeah, we already explained that. Good day, madam, and so on. Great. Although PHP has no strict formatting rules, it's standard procedure and good programming form to make it clear when one block of code is a subset of a conditional to indent it. Meaning, you don't have to. This is nice and neat. You know, this is nice and neat the way they're indenting. You don't have to indent if you don't want to, but it's good program practice to indent. Okay, you can and frequently will nest conditional. You might put an if inside of an if. It happens all the time. I should give you, maybe I'll add to the homework assignments to do something else where you might have to do a condition inside of a condition. And you just know that you're able to do that. The first conditional in this script is the is set, and it's a perfect example of how to use the default value and so on. Let's see. The curly braces, we talked about those. All right, we're not, we'll get to the ands or ors in a few minutes, and the XOR as well. Let me talk about the switch statement. Right now we're dealing with the condition of if something is true or not. So there's also something called a switch. So let me just copy this code and I will try to do an example with it. Again, let me break this, copy this, and I'm gonna do this, PHP, and oops, scroll down there and close this up. So what the switch does is the switch is a little bit of a, well, it's sometimes a little bit easier to accomplish your end result. What do I mean? Let's make a number again. Let's do a variable num. We'll set as equal to, I don't know, equal to, oh, you know, let me make it equal to the request. That was fun. That was, I was like, I could use the actual form, right? So I'd make it equal to request name. Request name. So it's going to be passed in from the name. So whatever, we're going to use the name as a number. Now I'm going to switch num. Basically what this means is I'm going to be checking the num, and a switch means basically is it, you know, or what is it? If it's going to be a, let's do 1, right? Then I'm going to say echo 1, all right, echo 1. I'll talk about the breaks in a minute. If it's a 2, I'm going to say echo 2. See how I'm not indenting and it looks weird? Echo 2, not weird, but like, you know, that is nice. 2, let me just make this a little nicer. Echo 2, echo, I guess 1, break, echo 2, break, and default, well, I'll do one more actually. You can put as many echoes in as you want. I mean, you can put in as many cases as you want. Echo, and this one's going to be case 3. Stop that. 3, type 3 in here. 3, and then break, and I'm going to have a default. Default, I'll say, I don't know, echo, I don't know, greater than 3, I guess. Greater than 3. Break, and yeah, let's see if this works. Switch num, break. All right, let's see if this works. Saved it. Back to here, back to there. I'm refreshing it, and I'm going to put in a 2. Oh, well, let's see. Right, it appears I'm missing a semicolon. I'm putting a semicolon in, and I'm saving it, going back to here, refreshing it. I'm going to put in, I'll say a 3. I'm going to run it, submit it, and it says 3. So what's happening behind the scenes here? What's happening? Well, what's happening? 3 is being passed through my name to num. So now num is equal to 3. Case 1, is num equal to 1? If it is, print 1. it's not. So I'm going to skip all this. Case 2, is it equal to 2? No. Is it equal to 3? Oh, it is equal to 3. Therefore, I'm going to go and echo the word 3. So it's similar to an if, else, but kind of different. If I don't put anything in, if I go back to here and I put in, let's say, I don't know, if I put in 5, I'm going to submit it. It's if you none of these are hit, it's going to go to the default one, which is greater than 3. So there are these breaks as well. So what does the break do? The break is executed once one of these has been executed. What does that mean? Let me take a break out to demonstrate. I'm going to take this break out for now. I'm just going to comment it out. All right. So now, and I'm going to type in a 1. What's going to happen? I'm going to type in a 1. This num is going to be equal to 1. Case 1, is it 1? It is 1. So it's going to echo 1. But there's no break statement, which means it then falls through to the case 2. So it's going to echo the word number 2. So it's going to say 1, and then it's going to say 2. I'm going to put a space in here just to make it a little bit more apparent. It's going to say 1, and then it's going to say 2. And then it's going to be a break, so then it's going to go and break out. So I'm going to go to here, there, refresh, and I'm going to pipe in a 1, and right at 1, I'm going to hit this. It's going to say 1, 2. And again, it says 1, 2 because it's a 1 and then a 2, and then it breaks out. If I get rid of this there, it's going to say 1, 2, 3, right? Just to prove it to you. All right, if I put in a 1, 1 here is there already. It's going to say 1, 2, 3, right? Because I'm not breaking out of it. So, and there are situations where you want to fall through. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but there are actually many situations where you actually want to fall through and execute the code beneath and not break out. That's why the break exists. But if you just want to go and break out, then you could, go and put in the break. I'm not sure why they put in a break over here on the last one, because there's nothing else after this. I mean, the code's going to work the same without this break, but I don't know. Anyway, so that's a switch statement. Switch is like an if else, but a little bit cleaner in some ways, and for sure, it looks much easier to go into use it this way. All right, so let me go back to the book, right? So let's just see what they say here about it, right? The switch conditional compares the value of the variable to the different cases, right? Switch variable cases, case that, and so on. When it finds a match, the following code is executed up until the break. If no match is found, the default is executed, assuming it exists. It's optional. That's true. You don't need a default. You only want to you don't have to put it in if you don't want to. The switch condition is limited in its usage in that it can only check a variable's value for equality against certain cases. More complex conditions cannot be easily checked. True. I should have mentioned that. It's a very basic. You could check basically for like very basic things. You could check like, is it equal to? I'm not even sure if you could do a greater than. I don't think you can. Let's see. Switch. No. Yeah. I don't think if num greater than 2. I don't think you do this. Let me just run it. I'm expecting an error. So not a real error. Running it up. Okay, I'm going to put in one of what was my condition here? I said if it's greater than 2. So I'm going to put in 3. Oh, 1. I don't know why that happened. Let's see. If it's it actually worked. Switch. No, I don't know why that happened. 3. I don't know. That's like a weird. It doesn't even mean anything. I have to. I guess I would have to put the case in here. That's where my problem is. Case num greater than. I'm not going to bother with this, but it's not. You don't normally do something like that. It's meant for equalities, like if it's equal to this, that, and so on. Like you would use it for. I don't know if you're doing it for like the months. January, February, March. If the person is putting in a month in number format and you want to print it up as an actual month name, that would be like a good example of using one of these switch statements. All right, validating form data. Let me just take a quick look what we're looking at the clock and looking at this for a second here. 1 second. All right, well, we could start this. It's fine. Okay, so a A critical concept related to handling HTML forms is that validating form data. In terms of both error management and security, you should absolutely never trust the data being submitted by an HTML form. Whether erroneous data is purposely malicious or just unintentional, it's inappropriate. It's up to you, the web architect, to deal with it. So there's a lot of different ways that you're able to go and validate a form. Let me actually plug in this next example, okay, and I'll be able to probably do a faster explanation of it that way. Give me a second here. And this is, we're up to 4. Up to 4, hold on. All right, this is a lot bigger. So, okay, and let me go to here, this, that. Okay, look how big this is getting. You start off so small. All right, so we got our no, we're doing a lot here actually. Okay, so we're jumping into PHP. This has more error checking. Okay, the first part here, validate the name. So remember that there is this empty command. Let me show you empty here. Let's do here. Hold on a second. Let's do empty. If not empty, hold on here. Empty. Where is it? Empty. 1 second. Where do they start talking about empty? Right here. Okay. One standard function to be used is the isSet, which we spoke about before, which tests if a variable has a value including 0, false, or any empty string, but not null. One of the ways one issue with the isSet function is that an empty string tests are true, meaning that isSet is not an effective way to validate text input and text boxes from an HTML form. To check that a user types something into the textual elements, you can use the empty function. It checks if a variable has an empty value, an empty string, 0, null, or false. There's also other ways you could check it also by like getting the string length and so on. Basically, it's going to check and see if something has been entered. So getting back to here, so we're going to say we're going to validate the name. What are we going to do here? We're going to get a request on the name. If not empty, so meaning if there is something inside, if there's a string inside of name, then the name is going to be equal to the request name. You see how that's done there? It's nice. It's nice and clean. If it's not empty, the request, then we're going to go and we're going to get the name. Else, name is equal to null, and we're going to say you forgot to enter your name, right? Because meaning, and this is like an example of how you'd also go and use the not. So if it's not empty, get the request. Otherwise, name is going to equal to null, and we're going to give them a message. If not empty, request email, then email is going to be equal to the email that they put in. Otherwise, else, email is equal to null, and we're going to say you forgot to put in an email. Again, with the comments, the same thing, right? And now we're going to validate the gender. If is set request gender, so if they put in a gender, then gender is going to be equal to the gender. And if it's equal to M, do that. Otherwise that, and then okay. Let's see. Oh, if it's not set, else else the request gender is not set, gender is equal to null. You're going to say you forgot to put in the specific gender. If everything is okay, print the message. Okay, so here is the ands. I said I'll speak about the ands, and so I'm gonna. The and is a logical operator. I'm not sure. I don't know if you've taken a math class, you probably know about logical operators. There's and ors. Getting back to the other form there. Let me just again remind you. There's a few. I'll go to the textbook actually. Be easier. Right. We have. Right. There's and. There's these double ands, or you can use the word and. I always use the double ampersand. And there's two pipes, which is the pipes are, where are they? They're on the right side of your keyboard, right above the backslash, right underneath the backspace probably on the right side. Those are pipes. and two pipes are an OR. So you have an and an OR. And logical operators work like this. Okay, let me just make a quick logic table here. This is just not part of the code, just a logic table, right? You have, I'm gonna make 0 being 0 is false, for this false, and 1 is true. That's universal, right? And 1 is true, okay? And with an and, this is the table, right? I'm gonna say if you have a true, a 1, and a 1, this is gonna be equal to true. You need a true and a true to make a true. Well, I don't know what that is. Okay, then if you have a true, and a false, right? This is going to be equal to a false. And if you, it automatically types in if you have a false and a true, that's going to be equal to what? You know, it's going to be equal to a false, right? And a false is also going to be equal to a false. One more here. A false and a false is going to be equal to a false. So basically, to get a true, you need a true and a true to get a true. So that's the basic thing of true and false. Okay. All right. So that is the trues and the false. Trues and false. As opposed to an OR. ORs, the OR logic would work like this, okay? If you have a true or a true, right? That's going to equal a true. If you have a, every single time, if you have a true or a false, so either with an or, only one of them has to be true. So a true or a false, that's going to be equal to true. And you can just switch this around for the next one. You could have a false or a true is going to be true. And the only way you're going to get a false with an or is they both have to be false. So if I have a false or a false, that's going to be equal to a false. So that's a truth table for trues and false, and with the ands or ors. So what does that mean in our case? Anytime you have, you could put a whole bunch of these logical operators together. So what are they doing here? If everything is okay, print the message. So we only want to print this message if they entered the name and the email, all this. So how does this work? If name, meaning if name is true and email is true and there's a gender and there are comments, then we're going to go and print all this up. Else, it's going to be missing. You're going to do the message that they're missing some information. Go back and try again. So if you put one of these as ORs, it would work a little bit differently. Let me just see if they talk about short circuiting before I continue on here. Give me 1 minute. 1 second. And hold on. Where was it? Gender here. So yeah. Right over here. Print the message indicates the validator is okay. If all those, yeah. So they're not talking about short circuiting. Basically, is a way of, as soon as it hits a false, as soon as it's not, the statement is not true, it exits out of the command. The main condition is true if every listed variable has a true value. Each variable will have a value if it's passed a test, but it will have a null otherwise. So basically, the reason why this is all true is because none of them are going to be equal to null. If one of them has a value of null is false, so then you would not go and get this message. So let's just test this out really fast here. Make sure that it actually works. I'm saving it here and going back to over here, and I'm going to run it. And I'm going to forget to put something else. I will forget to put the name in, let's say. I'm deleting this. I have everything else. I'm going to submit it. And it's going to say you forgot to enter the name. Go back and fill out the form again. because we forgot to fill in the name. That message came from all the way up here, right? And then it's gonna please go back and fill the form again. That's from over there. All right. All right, so we're going to end here. I'm going to, I'll start arrays next time. I don't want to start arrays right now because I'm not sure if I have enough time to complete it. I don't think I could do it justice. It's a big deal with, and in addition, right after arrays, I talk about while loops. So I'll touch upon that next time, and we will pick it up from there. The homework has already been posted. If you have any questions, please contact me. Don't fall behind in the homework. I'll always help students out. If you need help, just but I have to know if you need help or not. So let me know if you need any assistance. Send me a note, and we could take it from there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.